7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another broadcast of Inside Pacer Nation. Along with Jordan Phillips, I'm Marcus Johnson. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, we're glad to have everybody with us today. We're going to go in depth a little bit more on the spring sports today. We're going to talk about women's and men's basketball and how they wrap their seasons up. Talk a little bit about softball, tennis, golf, maybe even a little bit of baseball there at the end.
No, definitely a little bit of baseball. Are you kidding me? They're getting into full swing of baseball.
So, should be an exciting episode for everyone.
We're going to start things off with women's basketball. As you know, the basketball seasons have unfortunately come to an end for USC Aiken as the women's team dropped the first game of the PBC tournament, and the men's team did the same. But, you know, looking back at the season they had, after what happened last year, they had a good season this year, and you got to be proud of them. You got to be proud of all the players, the coaches. Just remarkable jobs from both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. The women's team and the men's team both improved their records from last season. The women were 9-19 this year. They were 14-15, and the men were 6 and something with a lot of losses. I'm not exactly sure the number, but
all you need to know is a lot of losses.
Yeah, and then this year they were 19-9, I believe. So it was a great season for both teams, and unfortunate that it had to come to an early end. But you know, they're on the rise. Both teams are.
Bright futures ahead of them. And speaking of bright futures, you know, some of the freshmen for the women's team, especially Kay Farah, they put up some great numbers for USC Aiken. Farah played in 29 games, 24 of them she started, and you know, just looking all over her stat sheets, she had a 67% from the free throw line. So she's making her free throws. She went 58 of 86. Okay, so maybe not as great as you'd like, but for a freshman, that's not too bad. Mm-hmm. And she's averaging 14.3 points a game. She scored 414 on the year.
Yeah.
So that's incredible job from Farah.
And Kay Farah, she's such a dynamic scorer. She can shoot from about 18. She's good for about 18-foot jumpers. She's extremely talented under the basket, getting rebounds, getting putbacks, second look baskets. She's just a dynamic scorer. She's a great rebounder, and she's going to be a great weapon for the Pacers going on into the future.
And then moving on to another dynamite Pacer, Rocky Apont. She played in 26 games this year, averaged 20 minutes per game, so she was out there. She was a workhorse for the Pacers. Her shooting percentage, it wasn't that great. It was 35%, 36%, but she was getting clutch points when she needed to, and she shot 33% from the 3-point line. So most of her shots were coming from three, and she was making. That's a decent percentage.
Yeah, for a 3-point percentage, absolutely, and she also took a high volume of shots, so that, you know, if it's a low percentage, she still generated so many points this season. She was such a big weapon for the Pacers, and in so many games, she was the difference maker for the Pacers, causing numerous comebacks. I mean, even in the Augusta University game to close out the season, you know, she started out the first half a little shaky, didn't exactly nail things down, came out in the second half, had a huge second half, and took the Pacers to the win.
Yeah, and you said she shot a lot of shots. She shot 176 times from three or beyond, and she made it 58 times. Her overall shots were 276, so over half of her shots were coming from threes, and she was still making 33%. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
But finishing on a strong note, Carly Gilreath, her senior year, and I don't think she has anything to be ashamed of. She came out, she did her work this year, and she shined.
She did. She showed that she has an excellent stroke from 3-point range, and so many times for this season for the Pacers, that 3-pointer was a huge part of their offense and a huge reason why they had so much success this season. And she showed that she wasn't just a 3-point shooter. And I mean, that was what that was kind of her role in the past, was just to shoot threes. But this year, I mean, she was a scorer. She commanded the floor. She was an excellent addition at point guard for the Pacers this year.
Yeah, talk about workhorses. She averaged 35.1 minutes per game. She was shooting 32% actually from the 3-point line. And, you know, she would make some clutch three-pointers, but her big contribution to this team was her assists. She averaged 5 assists per game. She managed 144 on the year, more than twice the amount that both Farah and Apont had on the year. So that just goes to show you how big she was setting up the plays.
That was her role this season. Her role was to create opportunities for her teammates, you know. And since she does have that deadly 3-point shot, she could draw defenders away from another player on the team to her to guard her on the three-point line outside the line, and she just kick it over to him for the easy assist.
So we wish her and all of the Pacers seniors a fond farewell as they finish out their collegiate careers. And they got their final exams coming up at the end of May, so we're going to have to wish them a little luck then too. But in the meantime, a great season for them, great season for head coach Mark Miller, and we can only see better things to come from them, especially when he gets more of the talent that he wants on the team. And now we move on into men's basketball. Again, I mean, after last year, you have to say 19-9, you said?
18-9.
18-9. Either way, that's an incredible improvement over last year.
Their exact record last season was 6-20. This season, 18-9. I mean, what an improvement over last season. Any season where you go from not making the tournament to making the tournament is a great season. But any time you can see that big of a turnaround in your win-loss column, I mean, it's a great season. And Coach Mark Vanderslice has nothing to be ashamed about this season. I mean, it was an excellent season for the Pacers.
Yeah, just a group of guys that he put together at the beginning of the year. They came together. They had great chemistry as the year went on. The beginning of the year, they started out good, and then they got a little shaky, but then they just settled right in, and they did work. And they put themselves in a position to really do some damage in postseason play. Sadly, they just couldn't get it done, but that happens. I mean, you're going to have off days, and sadly, the Pacers had an off day in the worst kind of way that you can. But overall, an incredible season and some incredible players coming out of this. Just to name three of them. I mean, I want to name all of them, but we only have a certain amount of time that we can do. You know, Mark Matthews, Christian Nobles, and Henry Bolton III. These three guys really stood out. I mean, there's other guys. I mean, I could talk about Robert Hill all day long if you want me to, but unfortunately, it was eeny, meeny, miny, mo selecting these players to talk about. So, these are the three names that we selected for the game. So we'll go ahead and talk about Mark Matthews to start things off. Guy was a monster from the 3-point line. It seemed like every time he touched that ball, he was going for three, and he would put that ball in there as best he could.
Yeah, he had an absolutely dynamite 3-point stroke this season. And, you know, it was easy to tell how much of a factor he was for the Pacers. I mean, when he was cold, the offense was cold. But when he was hot, man, was the offense hot. He just absolutely could turn a game around with his 3-point shooting ability.
Yeah, 36% from the 3-point line, not bad at all. But another thing, he was over 50% just from the floor. 52%, or actually 53%, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
53% from the floor. So he's making half the shots that he's making. That's not too bad any time of the day.
Yeah, he's a great presence out there for the Pacers, and it's going to be exciting to see how he does next year.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed about him is he could cover the court. He could shoot it from three, but he could also go in and get a quick little layup.
He could. He can score from anywhere, and that's so important to have in a big man like Mark Matthews.
Yeah, and he also averaged 8 rebounds per game, so he's showing his presence. He's not a small guy either.
No, he's not. He's about 6'6", I believe.
Yeah, he's big enough.
Yeah, and he's just got the talent to score from anywhere. He can do things defensively for you. He's a great player.
And another one, Christian Nobles. This guy, he's a little guy. I'll admit it. He's little, shorter than me. Anybody shorter than me is little, but nah. I'm just making a joke. Please don't come after me, Christian. But he also had a good season, 41% from the field, 32% from the 3-point line, and he made a few of those 3-pointers from the other side of the court.
Yeah, and one of his biggest weapons was his ability to slash to the basket. I mean, for such a small guy, he could just weave through those big dudes down low and just make it look easy. And he had so many beautiful moves that he would do with the ball. He would just bring it under and over. I mean, he just had so many moves to score from inside, which that was impressive enough. But then you add in his ability to shoot from outside the 3-point line, and he was such a dangerous weapon to point guard for the Pacers this year.
He had some of the best hands I've ever seen at this university. He could bring that ball up and he could do damage with it.
Yeah, he was a huge addition for the Pacers from Payne College.
Yeah, a lot of times I'd see players who could bring the ball up, and that's what they were brought into the university for. But he could bring the ball up, and then he could actually do something with it, which made him even more effective and more deadly.
Yeah, such a dangerous player for the Pacers, and it's such a shame that we only got to see 1 year of him here.
Yeah, 1 year, sad to say, but Henry Bolton III going on to another player who, this guy performed every night he went out there. I mean, if he didn't score 20 points a night, that was rare.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy really did some damage. He had a 3-point percentage of 43%. I mean, when you're shooting 43% from the three, you're deadly.
Yeah, Henry Bolton, if the game was on the line and you needed points, Henry Bolton was the guy you wanted to see taking that shot. I mean, there were times when he just couldn't miss, and he's just such a solid scorer, such an excellent scorer for the Pacers.
Yeah, he also was shooting 45% from the 3-point line. No, sorry, 45 just from the field. I'm getting all mixed up. He's got very high numbers all over his stat sheet here, so it's easy to read the wrong area. But he's also, this guy picked up 389 points on the year. Going back to Christian Nobles, he picked up a good number himself, 393 points. And you go to Mark Matthews, his points were 403. So these guys were just putting up points like no tomorrow.
Yeah, they were. I mean, and that was the name of the game for the Pacers this season. Just score and outscore your opponents, and that's how they were able to have so much success. But I mean, that did end up being a problem for them in some games where you just can't outscore every team, but they got a lot to build on. I mean, this team has a lot to look forward to. They've got guys like Matthews coming back next season, Rob Hill, and
yeah, I said a word about Rob Hill. Now I really want to talk about him because he's actually a freshman.
Go ahead.
Doesn't look like a freshman at all. The guy's a massive presence on the court. 6'10", what is he, 235, 240 pounds?
Somewhere
or something
around
like
that range.
So he's a big man, and he makes his presence known. I just want to look at it. He averaged 6.8 rebounds per game. He just sat under that basket, and he picked it off. And he was able to average 70% from the field. That's because he just sat under the basket, picks up a rebound, and all he has to do is reach up with his arm and just drop it in the basket.
And that's why he's so dangerous for the Pacers. I mean, he can score a lot of points that way, getting those offensive rebounds, bringing them back down, and on those putback plays. He's also got the height and the hops to make those big, exciting dunks that the Pacer crowd loves to see so much. We saw a few of those this season. He's a dynamic scorer. He's only going to get bigger as time increases here, which is terrifying.
Yeah, very terrifying.
Because, I'll see him walking around campus, and he's just massive. He's just huge, and you can see that from anywhere. And I can't imagine what it's got to be like for other players from other schools to look over and see that, that guy's a freshman. He's getting bigger. He's getting stronger as his time here increases, and that's terrifying for other teams.
I can expect some really good things to come from this guy. He'll probably really put his name in the record books for USC Aiken. But that's enough about basketball. We've gone on a little too long, but it's a great sport. It was a great year and really brought the excitement back to the university, let's be honest, we're used to success in basketball, and when we don't have it, we're a little bit upset, but we're getting back there, and the university is going to be back in the national spotlight soon enough, I think. So let's move on to golf. Not a lot to talk about with golf right now. Their season is getting underway. They're doing really well, though. Obviously they play against Division I schools, and they're able to compete really well. But the Cleveland Golf Palmetto Intercollegiate will be starting up soon. March 6th is when that's going to start up. That'll be Monday. And that'll go into the 7th on Tuesday. USC Aiken will host that. And once again, that will be broadcast depending on how weather holds up. It should hold up. It should be a nice day. I'm just going to make a prediction here, even though I do not have a degree in meteorology. But it'll be a good day. It'll be a good day. I'm fingers crossed. And if it's anything like last year, it'll be a successful tournament. A lot of D1 schools coming out. USC Aiken can compete with the best of them, and you'll be able to watch at least a little bit of it for a few hours, I guess.
Yeah, should be exciting for the Pacer fans to see the golf team out and doing their thing.
As we've mentioned before, they do have national championships, so
yeah, they're always a big draw for the Pacers.
So after that, we're gonna go into tennis now. Tennis doing okay. They started to struggle a little bit, but they're trying to get back on track.
They did. They dropped a couple matches this weekend, but one of them was to the top-ranked team in the nation. So that's women's tennis, by the way. So you can't really be that upset about it. But as they go forward, they're going to get into some tougher competition in the Peach Belt. They've got some big games coming up soon. Got some home games that they're going to have to win here. But the key to their season is going to be the ability to win on the road.
Yeah, and if you can't win your games on the road, if you can, especially with the fact that they're not going to be playing at home for very much coming in March, they'll be mostly at other universities during March. I believe they come back on the 28th.
Yeah, both the men and the women's tennis team have a lot of away games coming up here, and that's going to be the key for them this year. is to win those road games. Those are tough games when you're, facing other teams far away from home. It can get a little unnerving at times. So the key is to just hang tough, stick with it, and battle back so that when you do come back home, you don't really have to worry about much.
Yeah, tennis looking to get back into the swing of things. And if I know Coach Dom, I talked with him a few times. I actually had a class with him back in tennis. Yeah. But if I know him, he'll get them back on track, and they won't have anything to worry about.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
Now moving on into softball, things are getting good in softball. Let's go ahead and take a look at them right now, shall we, Jordan?
Absolutely, sounds like a good idea.
Pacers, they have they're coming up to some conference play. They're going to play both UNC Pembroke and Francis Marion coming up within the next few days. That'll be some tough conference play. Against Pembroke, they're 40-14 all time, so they've had some luck against Pembroke.
Yeah, had some good success against them.
However, they're going to be on the road for that series, so that could be tough. But they'll also play Francis Marion, which not so much success. They're actually 23-37 in the all-time series against Francis Marion. But this is a different Pacer team. This is a good Pacer team, so we're going to look to see if they can really do some damage. And speaking of damage, we had a little history made with Lindy Dorgan. She's tied the record for runs scored in a game with 4. She was able to hold her own against Clayton, not only at bat, but she also pitched that game. It was a 7-3 victory that she was in. And just reading off the notes that we have in front of us, she reached base 4 times, one hit by pitch, a walk, and a fielder's choice. In all 4 instances, she crossed home plate. So getting on base and scoring, huge factor in the game.
And that shows just how important getting on base can be. I mean, sure, a fielder's choice isn't going to pad your batting average any, but you get on base and you get around and you come around to score. I mean,
there are two important offensive stats that I look at when I evaluate a player. One is batting average, and 2 is on base percentage. Because on base percentage is just as important as batting average. Because even if your average is, let's just be honest here with it for a nice word, garbage. If your on base percentage is a 400-500, you've at least got a good eye for the ball, or you're at least making stuff happen.
I was about to say, you could almost argue that the OBP is more important than batting average.
In some cases, yeah.
Because, I mean, if you have a guy who, he may not get that many hits, but if he's getting on base, if he or she, since we're talking about softball here,
yeah.
If she's getting on base, then you know that you're always going to have someone at first, maybe even at second, who you can score with a hit. And that's important to a team. Manufacturing runs is very important to a team, especially one like the Pacers that doesn't have a lot of big bats in the lineup.
And also, if you think about it, the situations late in the game where it's a 1-run ball game and you've got 2 runners on second and third, you hit a fly ball out, but it's deep enough. I mean, sure, that's not going to go against your batting average, but it's not going to really help anything else. But you hit a deep fly ball, you're out, but you score a run.
Exactly.
So, I mean, again, runs scored. It's all about runs. That's what these games are all about.
Yeah, that's the lesson of the day.
And again, going back to Dorgan, she had a great game. Not only was she good offensively, but she was good defensively. She's played a bunch of positions, several of them in her career at USC Aiken, but she returned to the circle for the first time since 2016 in the second game against Converse, and she tossed a complete game. She fanned 8 batters and walked just 3 in that 7-3 victory. So she had a dominant performance in the circle.
Much better than that.
Dominant performance in the circle, dominant performance in the box. She's got all her shapes covered.
Yeah, she absolutely dominated in that game.
And so softball, they'll be back in action in just a couple of days against UNC Pembroke. They'll be on the road for that one, and they'll also play Francis Marion. Believe they're home for that one. I cannot confirm it. Just give me 1 second. 1 second. Stop rushing me, Jordan.
I never will.
No, you're rushing me. I know you are.
I'm looking over at our Willie Jules barbecue backdrop.
Oh, you got to get the pitch in. You got to get the pitch in
I'm the pitch man. That's what I do.
Yeah, they are. I believe they're playing Francis Marion at home, but the notes are lying to me. I gotta have a word with somebody about that.
Yeah, we gotta talk to someone about that.
Somebody, as I look at the door. No, but anyway, softball's looking good. I'm liking what I'm seeing from softball. They got a great crop of players this year, despite losing some good players, and it's going to be a good year. It's going to be a good year.
It should be very exciting to see how their performance transfers to the rest of the season.
And now, my favorite sport of all time. I'm sorry about all the other sports, but my favorite sport at this university is baseball.
I have to agree with you.
Baseball has just been dominant this year. They've only lost 2 games.
They lost 2 games, both of them coming against Mount Olive on the road. Perfect here at Roberto Hernandez Stadium.
They almost blew one, though. They almost blew the first game of this last series.
The first game of that series against Young Harris.
Young Harris, thank you, yes.
Yeah,
Young Harris.
first game against Young Harris. But ever since, even after that first game, they... Goodness gracious.
Okay, so
Saturday, 15-5.
Yeah.
Sunday, oh my goodness.
20-0.
20-0.
20-0.
Them's football numbers.
They literally were, because they scored 7 runs in one inning, 7 runs in another, and then they kicked a couple of field goals in 2 more innings.
And Nick Yobi had an extremely dominant pitching performance against Young Harris on Sunday. And it's actually pretty interesting because I was on Twitter Sunday night after the game, and I was scrolling through, and I'd seen a couple of tweets from a couple of the baseball players, and John Banks had actually predicted that they were going to put up 20 against Young Harris earlier in the weekend.
Did he predict it on the exact day? Or?
I don't think he may not have gotten the day right. I'm not sure, but all I saw was it was a tweet from Hunter Hubbard, and John Banks had said, we're going to drop a 20 piece on these boys, and well,
they did. They sure did. And I mean, not only, but yeah, the Pacer bats were showing off that night, but the Pacer pitching was doing well too. As you said, Nick Yobi had an outstanding outing as well, but Joey Benitez the day before, he threw a great game.
And Connor Riley, of course, threw an excellent. Yeah, we're getting a little spoiled with Riley.
Riley.
He's dominating out there. He's looking great.
And he kind of felt bad because they had a 2-0 lead going into the 9th, and Riley was all set up for the win, and then 2 runs were scored in the top of the 9th, and it crushed his chances at getting the win. So he felt bad for that, but you also felt good because Young Harris's pitcher for that night threw an outstanding game, 7+ innings. He only gave up the 2 runs, and you were kind of glad that he didn't get the loss.
Yeah, he didn't deserve a loss after a performance like that. I believe his name was Sean Livingston, maybe.
Something like that. If I had my score sheet in front of me, I'd be able to tell you, but I left that at home.
I believe his name was Livingston, but he did really well. He pitched a great game, just like Riley. I mean, it was a beautiful pitcher's duel, but a little too close for comfort. It
ended in a walk-off for the Pacers, and it helped them keep that perfect record.
And a walk-off for Connor Durden, who's been having a lights-out season for the Pacers.
Yeah, he's earned himself a starting role. He used to, what was happening earlier on in the season is he'd come in for a spell for Charlie Padilla, and then Charlie Padilla would come in to spell him, and you'd have Zach Moon as your DH. Obviously, you're All-American. You want to have him in the lineup.
Absolutely. You got to have him in the lineup.
But Connor Durden actually took over the DH spot on Sunday and Saturday. Sunday he took over the DH spot.
Sunday he was DHing, Friday he was catching.
Yeah, Friday he was catching, but he's earning that starting role. And I believe Zach Moon started catching, but he came out for his own reasons after the first inning, after a sac fly. So he was at least on the score sheet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a good year for USC Aiken baseball. They're number 3 in the nation, believe it or not, going into this weekend. And they actually have number 1 coming up.
Nova Southeastern?
Nova Southeastern, I believe
it's Nova South something.
Yeah, Nova South something, but they're the number 1 team in the nation going up against the number 3 team in the nation.
And you and I are going to be calling that.
That's going to be so much fun.
I can't wait.
Although that kind of puts our perfect record in danger now, doesn't it?
It does. It actually does. It has yet to be threatened. This is a stat Marcus and I like to joke about ourselves, but as a broadcast team, the two of us, we have never called a game that the Pacers have lost. I've called games they've lost. Marcus has called games they've lost, but as a pair, we have never lost.
So let's see if this will be the first real test. No, watch. It's gonna be one of the other games. One of the games we're not expecting.
It'll be the ones before then.
Yeah, it'll just happen. Just a random fluke.
It's gonna happen on a Sunday. A walk-off balk. We'll lose on a walk-off balk.
Oh, we can't lose on a walk-off balk. We're the home team.
Oh yeah, it's true. So we're not in danger of anything like that.
But it's going to happen eventually. The perfection can only last for so long. But then again, you don't really care about that. You only care about the sports.
Absolutely.
So that about wraps things up here. Pacer baseball doing well. Pacer softball doing well. Pacer basketball had a great year, though. I cannot stress that enough. It was a success despite the losses at the end. So everything is looking up if you're a Pacer sports fan. Going into the next couple of weeks, things should be great. And I don't think we have anything to worry about.
I don't think so. I think the spring sports are going to do great work for the Pacers, and I think we have a chance for maybe a couple of more regional championships.
And you never know. At least a PBC champ. I predict at least 1 or 2 PBC championships coming up for any of these sports.
I think so. I think that's a safe prediction.
All right, so for Jordan Phillips, I'm Marcus Johnson. Thank you for joining us on yet another episode of Inside Pacer Nation. We'll be back in a couple of weeks to give you a little more updates. Thank you, and have a good one.